Our next speaker is a renowned scholar in educational policy and a leading voice in system-wide school improvement. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Professor Donald Peurach, Professor of Educational Policy, University of Michigan School of Education.
Your Excellency, Dr. Muhaditha Al-Hashemi, Chairperson of the Sharjah Private Education Authority, President of the Sharjah Education Academy, all who've gathered with us here today. Good morning. I'm Don Peurach. I'm a professor of educational policy, leadership, and innovation at the University of Michigan in the United States. My research focuses on efforts to organize, manage, and improve the day-to-day work of students and teachers in classroom instruction. And that has my work stretching from the classroom level to the school level, to the system level, to the national policy level in the United States and around the world. The focus of my work is exactly what brings us together at the 2025 Sharjah International Summit on Improvement in Education: understanding educational reform in the global context. And as participants at the summit, my work becomes your work. And as colleagues in this work, I'll use our time together to frame our efforts to understand educational reform in the global context, and then I'll use that framework to raise 3 challenges to guide your reflections on your experiences at the summit yesterday and today. So let's start with our shared work, understanding educational reform in the global context. As I framed it in my own research, policy discourses and reform initiatives in many countries have long focused on 3 fundamental ambitions: advancing educational access, quality, and equity for students. These are the primary colors of education policy and reform, mixed to different degrees and in different proportions to make up many, if not most, education policy and reform initiatives around the world. So if the work of understanding educational reform in the global context feels overwhelming, I encourage you to focus on how these 3 fundamental ambitions, educational access, quality, and equity, are being defined, debated, and pursued in different national contexts. And if you do, you'll find that these 3 fundamental ambitions lead directly to 3 fundamental challenges faced by high-level leaders, by local teachers, and by local leaders: challenges of empowerment, agency, and improvement. So let's start with empowerment. In nearly every country around the world, you'll find high-level governmental and non-governmental organizations working very hard to advance educational access, quality, and equity. This includes establishing legal, financial, and administrative infrastructures to support access to schooling. It includes establishing performance standards, curriculum frameworks, and assessments to ensure quality in students' educational experiences. And it includes creating guidance, resources, and programs to support all students and all teachers in improving the quality of their work. But these efforts are steeped in a paradox. The more that high-level organizations do to advance policy ambitions for educational access, quality, and equity, the more essential it is that they also empower local teachers and local leaders to do the same. So think about it. The greater the diversity of students in classrooms and schools, the higher the aspirations for students' developments, the deeper the commitment to the success of all students, the more regulations, guidance, and resources from high-level organizations, however well-intended, the more likely it is that local teachers and local leaders will experience new educational problems, new needs, and new opportunities in their daily work. And the more authority they'll need to prioritize, understand, and address the problems, needs, and opportunities that they view as most important for their students in their local contexts. So empowerment of this sort can require a mindset shift among high-level leaders accustomed to exercising rather than delegating authority. But no matter how much good work that they themselves do to advance educational access, quality, and equity, high-level leaders don't educate students. Local teachers and local leaders educate students. So that's our first fundamental challenge: advancing policy ambitions for educational access, Quality and equity depends on local empowerment. And local empowerment leads to our second fundamental challenge, local agency. And by that, I mean local action, local teachers, local leaders taking responsibility for advancing educational access, quality, and equity by addressing the educational problems, needs, and opportunities that they view as most important for their students in their local contexts. Empowerment is of little value unless local teachers and local leaders exercise agency. But just as empowerment can require a mindset shift among high-level leaders, exercising agency can require a mindset shift among local teachers and local leaders. So rather than viewing themselves as subordinates of high-level organizations, as many are accustomed to doing, exercising agency requires that local teachers and leaders assume the mindsets of innovators who navigate between high-level regulations, guidance, and resources on the one hand, and their own students' needs on the other to develop novel approaches to supporting students' growth and development. It requires that they find opportunities to exercise their discretion, use their knowledge, use their creativity to address problems, needs, and opportunities that they experience in their daily work in supporting their students' growth and development. So our first fundamental challenge, empowerment, leads directly to our second. Advancing policy ambitions for educational access, quality, and equity depends on local agency. Our second fundamental challenge, agency, leads directly to our third, improvement. By improvement, I mean the use of rigorous iterative methods of analysis, design, implementation, and evaluation to develop, test, and refine novel solutions to local problems, local needs, and local opportunities. This is agency exercised responsibly, akin to the scientific method, though not as enacted by elite researchers in remote labs, but instead by local innovators in their own classrooms, schools, and systems. For example, in technical terms, this is improvement science and networked improvement communities, design-based implementation research in professional learning communities, and participatory action research in broader school communities. And much as agency requires a mindset shift, improvement of this sort challenges local teachers and local leaders to develop new capabilities to build consensus around the most important educational problems, needs, and opportunities on which to focus, to analyze the root causes of those problems, to draw on their professional expertise and on research to design solutions, to implement those solutions and measure both implementation and outcomes, and to decide whether to adopt those solutions broadly, to adapt and test them again, or to abandon them and start from scratch. And with that, our second fundamental challenge, agency, leads directly to our third. Advancing policy ambitions for educational access, quality, and equity depends on local capabilities for collaborative continuous improvement. And our third fundamental challenge leads directly into this very room and into the 2025 Sharjah International Summit on Improvement in Education. Retracing our steps, we began by recognizing at the summit, we share the work of understanding educational reform in the global context. As colleagues in this work, I proposed framing educational reform around the world is focused on three fundamental ambitions: advancing educational access, quality, and equity. We then use these three fundamental ambitions to raise three fundamental challenges that follow, challenges of empowerment, agency, and improvement. So as you think about your experiences at the summit yesterday and today, I encourage you to reflect on the different ways that you've seen access, quality, and equity represented as ambitions for educational reform in different national contexts. I also encourage you to reflect on the different ways in which high-level leaders, local teachers, and local leaders are wrestling with challenges of empowerment, agency, and improvement in different countries around the world. Because at least in my own research, that's how we make a big difference in the daily work of students and teachers in classrooms, in schools, and in systems. Advancing ambitions for educational access, quality, and equity, and wrestling with the challenges that follow: empowerment, agency, and improvement. So if you can keep these ambitions, keep these challenges in the front of your minds, my hope is that you'll draw deeper meaning and deeper insights from your experiences at the summit than you would have otherwise. So to all of you, my new colleagues in understanding educational reform in the global context, thank you for this opportunity to frame our shared work.